Hello, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar on 3 powerful strategies for preparing yourself for the GMAT Focus Edition CR. Great. The very fact that all of you are here indicates that you are gearing up to take the GMAT Focus Edition once it is launched on 7th November. So my name is Sunita and I'll be your host for this evening. Let me get started with the GMAT Focus Edition. So I think what all of you already know is that this is the verbal section will only have RC and CR and 23 questions to be attempted in 45 minutes, which means you have just about 2 minutes, not even complete 2 minutes, but just about 2 minutes for each question, which makes the approach very, very important so that you will be able to maintain your pace, guys. All right. You cannot afford to go overboard in this case, and you don't have sentence correction where you will save some time and give some time to the RCs or CRs. So the approach of each and every question, how you solve RCs, how you solve your CR question will matter a lot more on this exam than it does for the current version. You can expect anything between 13 to 14 RC questions out of those 23. So clearly the weightage is slightly higher for RC questions. All right. Earlier also, I mean, in the current version also, RCs are very important, but less than the sentence correction. Sentence correction carries higher weightage, but now that sentence correction won't be there, RCs will definitely carry the higher weightage. Anything between 9 to 10 CR questions. So this is what you can expect to find. This is what we are going to look at today. So if the approach is going to be very important, that means you can't afford to mess up even 1 or 2 seconds of that 2 minutes, right? So what are you going to do? How are you going to streamline your approach to every CR question is what we're going to do today. Let me see if I have some more of you calling her. Hi, Samiksha. All right. Wonderful to have you guys here. So this is the things about GMAT Focus Edition, which I'm sure all of you already know. What are we going to do today? Now, I have promised you that you're going to learn 3 very powerful strategies that will help you pace your CR questions, that will help you solve those CR questions efficiently and accurately. Albeit, you'll have to give yourself a little bit of time to understand these strategies. So the first of the strategies that we are going to discuss today will be the power of analyzing the stimulus correctly. Yeah, the correctly spelled with 3 R's is just to emphasize how important this is. A lot of us just read the stimulus quickly, believing that, oh, it's very important to get quickly to the answer choices, But remember, if most of you find yourself stuck between 2 options, it's because you did not read the stimulus correctly. So we're going to talk about how to read the stimulus, how to analyze the stimulus correctly. Okay. This will be followed by the next most powerful strategy, and that is defining the scope of the argument. All right. A lot of you eliminate choices saying this is out of scope. Do you ever fix the scope? Do you ever define your scope? So we're going to talk about why it is very important to define the scope of the argument. And finally, we're going to talk about the power of applying frameworks for pre-thinking. All right. I'm sure a lot of you face problems with pre-thinking. You don't know what to pre-think, which direction to pre-think. So today we're going to talk about certain guidelines that you can use, certain tips that you can use for pre-thinking. So let's get started, guys. Are you excited? I'm very excited to share my insights with you. But are you excited as well, guys? Show some excitement. Show some excitement, guys. Okay. I'm sure you are excited. The very fact that you guys are there. So let me get started. So the correct approach to CR questions, I'm just offering this in a nutshell to tell you, how things are going to be placed today. The most important way, to pace your CR questions correctly is to follow the steps in the right direction. So analysis of the stimulus is the first important step. Next step is pre-thinking, where you can use frameworks for pre-thinking, or you can apply the scope of the argument or scope of the conclusion. So we are going to discuss these 3 important steps today, okay? And this sets you up for proper, accurate, efficient answer choice elimination. So the first of the things, power of analyzing the stimulus correctly, guys. So I'm going to start this off by asking you to solve this question. Go ahead, guys. Hi, Supreet. Go ahead, guys. This is a question that I want all of y'all to solve. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes, and I'm going to mute myself in the meantime. I'm going to kind of put this whole thing on camera and remove myself from this. I hope you guys can see the question clearly. I think this question is getting a little bit hidden by the logo. Let me try and kind of bring it down a little bit further so that the logo does not impede your reading. Yeah. Guys, can you, is the question visible to all of you? Okay, you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now. Guys, a request. Please do not post your answers until I request you to do so, all right? Do not post your answers till I ask you to do so. So go ahead. For those of you who have just joined, guys, we are going to discuss 3 powerful strategies that can help you solve GMAT focus CR questions more efficiently, more effectively. You have 1 more minute left, guys. Please hold on to your answers. I will ask you, I will tell you when to post the answers. Hi, Dinesh. Hi, Sai. All right, guys, you can start posting your answers. Those of you who have finished finished attempting the question can start posting your answers. So Sharmishta is saying assumption and strength in questions confuse me a lot. Well, Sharmishta, yes, they might be confusing, but there is a slight difference between assumption and strength in questions. In both the cases, the answer choice needs to strengthen or support the conclusion, except that an assumption is a necessary condition and a strengthener does not have to be a necessary condition. So Sharmishta and Safe believe A is the correct answer. I hope, Safe, I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Bhavya believes it's C. So just while the others are posting their answers, this is a GMATWhiz question. And I hope you liked the question, guys. You found the question challenging. Although not specifically stated that GMAT Focus CR is going to be more difficult, we can definitely expect it to be if not more, at least absolutely as challenging as you found CR on the current GMAT edition. All right, so I've got Pratik who believes it's D, and then we've got Veen saying it's A. Come on, guys, I can see so many of you out there. Please post your answers. Don't be afraid. It's good to interact. It's good to know on what pay, I mean, you know, what are our thought processes. Tanvir says C. So I've got a few takers for C, most for A, and then I have also have somebody who's posted D. Umang says E. Thank you, Umang. Dinesh believes it's A. Yes, guys, some more answers would be wonderful before I start the discussion. Nikhil believes it's B. Okay, while you guys are posting your answers, guys, Marshall says it's E. So Rajneesh, don't worry, Rajneesh. I'm going to discuss the next few things that I'm going to discuss will help you understand this question, okay? So Marshall E, Sunandrita says C, Ashok says B, Sharmishta, explanation, option D is really interesting. Okay, Chaitanya says A, Tanya says B. Thank you so much, guys. Wonderful, wonderful to have all your answers here. All right, guys, one quick question here. What is the conclusion of this paragraph? Is there a conclusion? And if there is a conclusion, what is the conclusion, the main conclusion of this paragraph? Can you guys quickly post that? Can you guys quickly post what is the main conclusion of this stimulus? Stimulus is the paragraph right before the question, Rajneesh. There are two sentences given there. Of those two sentences, what is the conclusion, if there is a conclusion? Go ahead, guys. Tell me what is the conclusion of this stimulus. Don't reread the paragraph, just tell me. So Pratik says price of the domestic goods increased is the conclusion. Sikandar believes the first sentence is the conclusion. Sunandrita believes that the second sentence is the conclusion. Sharmishta believes the second sentence is the conclusion. I think price hike is due to ban efforts are successful. So Sharmishta, the whole thing is not the conclusion. One of those is the conclusion, right? Bhavya says first sentence. Chaitanya says first sentence. Ashok says first sentence. Marshall says first sentence. So you guys are divided over what is the main conclusion, and that itself is very telling. And I'm sure there are a lot more out there who are confused as to what is the main conclusion. See, an assumption question requires you to point out the assumption behind the main conclusion. If you have not identified the main conclusion correctly, then your assumption will also not be correct. So, analyzing the stimulus correctly is very important. So, Rajneesh, usually we are brought up to believe that the last sentence of a paragraph is the conclusion, but that's not true. On the GMAT CR, the first sentence can also be the conclusion, a middle sentence can also be the conclusion, the last sentence can also be the conclusion. It will depend on your understanding of the main point that the author wants to convey. All right. So let's get started and understand why it is important to analyze the stimulus correctly and how to analyze the stimulus correctly. Okay. So please hold on to your questions while I discuss this. Hopefully all your queries will get answered. If not, I'm going to definitely give you time to answer those, to ask your questions. So per GMATWhiz, there are 3 steps. First step is to analyze the stimulus correctly, which is what we're going to discuss. Second step is to kind of look at the entire scenario and pre-think a little bit what a possible answer might be. And the third step, the last step, is answer choice elimination. We call it ACE. Now, when you read this sentence, government efforts to curb means stop, the poaching of elephants, means the hunting of elephants primarily for their ivory tusks. So elephants are hunted mainly for their ivory tusks, and the government's efforts to stop this poaching were successful. This should be were, my bad. Were a success in 2005. Now, when you read this sentence, It feels like a premise, right? It feels like a premise. So initially you feel that, okay, this is a fact that the author is telling us. All right, let's read ahead to understand what else the author wants to tell us. If the efforts had not been successful, the price of domestically produced goods would not have increased significantly. Now look at this sentence. What does this sentence mean? It means that the efforts had been successful, because if the efforts had not been successful, then the price would not have increased, which means the first sentence is not a fact. It's rather the conclusion of this small paragraph, and this sentence is given to support the idea that the efforts were a success. Because if the efforts had not been successful, the price of ivory goods would not have increased significantly. All right. Since the producers of ivory products do not mind buying ivory from any and all available sources. So if we break up this paragraph, the first sentence is the conclusion that government was successful in stopping the poaching of elephants in 2005. Okay, how do we know this? How do we know that government was successful? The second sentence is giving the reason behind believing that the efforts were successful. And if we simplify the second sentence, it means the price of ivory goods increased significantly in 2005. And here, the fact is, the producers of ivory goods are ready to buy from all sources. All sources means also from poachers. Okay. So if these people are ready to buy from poachers, then why did the price of ivory goods increase? Probably the poachers must have stopped hunting. Therefore, supply of ivory went down, and that is why the price went up. So this is why they are concluding that the government's efforts were successful. All right, so it is very important to identify what is the conclusion and what are the premise. So Rajneesh, for you, conclusion is the main idea that the author wants to convey in the paragraph, and all the supporting details or evidence or fact given are known as the premise. So all this is the premise. Okay, we call this the premise, and that's the conclusion. So here the reasoning is, since prices for domestic ivory goods increased, the efforts to curb poaching were successful. So we have to weaken the idea that the efforts to curb poaching were successful. We have to weaken this idea. Okay, we have to weaken this idea, which means we have to prove that the efforts to curb poaching were not successful. Okay, so guys, is this clear so far? So Ashok, it's not just enough to give a different reason for the price increase. It is important to prove that poaching did not decrease. Yes, Abu Bakr, the conclusion is the first sentence, because the prices shot up. So guys, it is very, very important that right at the outset, you always make it a point to identify what is the conclusion and how that conclusion has been built. What data or evidence has been used to build the conclusion. Okay, great. So it's a weekend question, all right, and we have to weaken the conclusion. So since prices of domestic ivory goods increased, that is why the reasoning is the poaching, the efforts to control poaching were successful. The reasoning is based on the fact that prices increase. Now we know that when does the price increase? If the demand is high, okay, we can think like this. We are doing the pre-thinking now because we've identified the conclusion, we have properly analyzed the stimulus. Now we can pre-think that, okay, we are talking about prices increasing. When does the price increase? If the demand is high and if the supply is fixed or low, lower than the demand, then the price shoots up, right? And Alternatively, if the demand is fixed or if the demand drops and the supply is high, then the price drops. Okay, this we know from our general understanding of things. So here the author is thinking that if the poaching continues, poaching will add or maintain the supply of ivory, right? And if the supply of ivory will be maintained, then that would keep the prices from rising. Prices won't rise. So the reasoning here is supply must have reduced significantly, especially by stopping the poaching to raise the prices. This is the author's reasoning, that poaching went down and supply went down, and therefore the prices increased. So we have to weaken this. So our weakener is any statement that shows that supply in the country from poachers was reduced maybe, but not because they stopped poaching. So this is what we have to focus on. All right, we have to prove that poachers did not stop poaching. Okay, this is in short what we have to prove. This is our scope. I'm going to define the scope for in the next question. So guys, all clear? Is this clear, guys? The pre-thinking step, all you did was, because you analyzed the stimulus properly, you are now able to pre-think clearly. All right. So now when I go to the options, I will look for a choice that will prove, all of you can note it down, that will prove that poachers did not stop poaching. If your choice does not tell you this, then that choice is not correct. So without wasting any more time, let's go to the choices. The first sentence says, poachers started getting a significantly better bargain abroad for their ivory in and around 2005. Now, what does this sentence suggest? Okay, this suggests that poachers continued poaching. Okay, poachers are still poaching, but they are selling the ivory outside the country. And that is why the supply is reduced, and that is how the prices have raised. So this choice hints, it suggests that poachers are still poaching, and this is what we are looking for. This is important. So this choice weakens the idea that government efforts were a success. Okay, because if poachers are poaching but selling outside, then the government's efforts were not successful. So A is the correct answer, and you will get A only if you are able to identify that this sentence is the conclusion that we are trying to weaken. Okay. Now let's also effectively rule out why the others are incorrect. The demand for ivory products suddenly shot up in 2005 following a fashion trend. Now this is telling us that the price went up because the demand went up. Demand went up, okay, and the supply was maybe same or low. All right, and that is why the price went up. My question to you is, guys, does this choice prove poaching poaching went on? Yes, guys, answer this question. So Chaitanya, in weaken questions, you don't need a bulletproof weakener. All right. This is a very, very important aspect of weaken questions. You, even if a choice slightly weakens the conclusion, it is Still correct. You don't need a bulletproof option. Only in assumption answer choices we need a bulletproof option. Okay, so Pratik says no, this does not prove. So Mohammed saying, is this significant enough to induce a demand? So Mohammed, exactly, we don't know. We don't know if the demand itself shot up the price or the supply went down and it shot up the price, because this choice doesn't tell us anything about the supply. Exactly, Ramakrishnan, very good. So this choice does not tell us by itself whether poaching was same, whether poaching went down, whether poaching increased, nothing. The price could simply have shot up because demand shot up. And therefore, this is not the correct answer. Thank you so much for your responses, guys. So let me just quickly remove all of this. So basically, this choice does not give you a clear-cut idea that, the poachers stopped poaching. Does not prove that supply of ivory from poachers had increased or decreased. And that is why B is out. Okay. So again, I'm going to keep on stressing on the importance of analyzing the stimulus. The stimulus is very, very important, guys. That's where we make the mistake most of the time. We think that we are making mistake on options, but actually the mistake was made if the stimulus was not read properly. In 2005, independent poachers joined forces to form bigger groups. Now, just because they formed bigger groups, okay, we are also saying which could face increased government vigilance. Just because they form bigger group does not mean that they stopped poaching. Just because government increased vigilance does not mean they stopped poaching. Okay, so this choice just tells us there were more powerful poachers, they had bigger groups, but this choice does not tell us whether the government was able to stop these groups or not, and therefore this is out of scope. The choice doesn't suggest that poaching reduced or increased. D again says poachers identified a unique technique. All right. Suppose I have a very unique technique of hunting elephants, but if the government efforts are such that they don't allow me to apply that technique, then so this choice again just says poachers had better, maybe they were better equipped to hunt, but does not automatically tell us whether they continued poaching using those techniques or not. So D is also out of scope. You cannot make assumptions on the answer choices. You cannot assume that just because it was a unique technique, that means they continued hunting. The answer choice should tell you that. And E says that producers of ivory goods are ready to pay a lot of high prices for raw ivory since they know they can recover their money. Now, this choice kind of just tells us in more detail that producers are willing to buy ivory from all sources. But the increase in price could have happened because these producers, they were buying at high price and they were adding that to their cost of production, right? It automatically does not indicate that poachers were continuing to poach or not. Okay, so E is again out of scope. Guys, is this clear? So what I'm going to do is, you have to understand that analyzing the stimulus is very, very important. We know that an argument can be built up by just one premise and the conclusion, or you can have multiple facts, multiple premises and the conclusion. You can have a premise and a counter premise. Counter premise is something that goes against the conclusion. The author can offer a counter premise just to safeguard his conclusion. We can have a premise and intermediate conclusion. That means a middle conclusion and not the main conclusion. So there are multiple structures that are possible on the argument. And if you do not understand or read the stimulus, understanding how this argument was built, you are bound to go wrong. All right. So I'm going to give you a small task, guys. This is a short paragraph. Now, you don't have to solve any question here. You just have to read this paragraph and identify which part is a premise. Mark P for a premise. You can write down your answers to yourselves and post it on the chat box. Write CP for a counter premise. So counter premise is something that goes against the main conclusion. Write IC for an intermediate conclusion, and write MC for the main conclusion. Okay, go ahead, guys. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do 1.5 minutes to do this. All right. Just identify the correct components or elements of the paragraph. Let's see if you can do this. This is a very, very simple exercise. And while you're doing this, I'm going to kind of post 2 links for you guys. Those of you who are interested in looking at our course more closely, I'm going to post the link to the trial version of our course. It's there on your screens right now. You can check out our course more closely by trying out this free trial version. And I guess a lot of you here are beginning to prepare for your GMAT like Rajneesh. In that case, if you want to talk to our strategy experts to know more about the Focus Edition or to know what you need to do, I'll also post another link. So let me post a link where you can set up a free call with our strategy experts. There's the link for you to set up a free call with our strategy experts. So guys, as soon as you finish identifying the different components, please start posting your answers in the chat box. So P for premise, CP for counter premise, IC for intermediate conclusion, and MC for the main conclusion. The Rajneesh, see if you can break up the last sentence further. Come on, guys. So you guys can just put a P dash, CP dash, MC dash like that. Just put dashes in between. Yeah, great. So KP, CP, IC. Okay, Akshat, P, CP, MC. Okay, that's wonderful. I can see. So one thing that I can see is some of you have got 4 divisions, some of you have got 5 divisions. So there is clearly something missing in at least some of these answer choices. Okay. Thank you guys for posting your answers. Thank you so much. So let me now show you how this should be analyzed, okay? Pay very close attention, guys. It's a very simple process. I have used a very simple example, but for every convoluted CR stimulus, this is the process. So I'm going to start reading the first sentence. The new technologies for the manufacture of paper require significantly less fuel and water. Now, clearly, this is a fact, right? It's a premise. Just give me a moment, guys. Sorry guys, just needed a sip of water. So the first sentence is just a fact. It's nobody's opinion. It's not a conclusion. So we will call it premise number 1. For now, this is telling us that new technology requires less fuel, less water. Okay. On the other hand, now on the other hand means we are going to talk about something which is opposite to this sentence, right? Clearly, this is opposite to the first sentence, but since right now we don't know what is the conclusion, this is also a fact for us and this is also a premise. So we've got premise 1, premise 2. All right. And premise 2 is probably a counter premise, as is indicated by the on the other hand. Both cannot be premise, right? But which of these two will be actually a counter premise, we will get to know later. For now, let's call it counter premise because these two sentences are opposite to each other, right? And this could therefore offset the reduction in fuel and water costs. So if the new technologies require a lot of labor, it could reduce whatever advantages you have because you're saving fuel and water. So the therefore indicates that we've got a conclusion. Therefore is a conclusion marker. Now, because we haven't finished reading the paragraph, let's call it intermediate conclusion. Okay? This could be the main conclusion, but we won't realize that until we reach the last sentence. Notice that this counter premise is supporting the intermediate conclusion. And the first premise is going against this. Just giving you a short insight. So you should also understand this relationship. Let's read the last sentence. However, since labor is cheap, now since is again a premise or fact marker. So this part of the last sentence, since labor is cheap compared to the cost of water and fuel, is premise number 3. And because of this, the last part is again a conclusion. Overall cost of paper manufacture will likely reduce significantly. Since this is a prediction, it can't be a fact. So it is the conclusion. Now you can ask yourself, is this the main conclusion or this the main conclusion? Clearly, the last one is the main conclusion. And for the main conclusion, the first premise is supporting the main conclusion. The third premise is also supporting the main conclusion, right? But the counter premise is going against the main conclusion. However, the counter premise is definitely supporting the intermediate conclusion. So if I summarize, premise 1 and premise 3 supports the main conclusion, whereas premise 2 counters the main conclusion, and that is why we call premise 2 counter premise. Similarly, premise 2 supports the intermediate conclusion, and the intermediate conclusion acts as a counter premise also. So here the first sentence is a premise. The second sentence is a counter premise. The second sentence can be divided into two parts, the counter premise and the intermediate conclusion. So these two together are performing the function of a counter premise. But we can divide this. And then the since part is acting as premise and the last portion is the main conclusion. All right. So those of you who have marked premise, counter premise, premise and main conclusion, this is also correct. This is also correct. Okay. Guys, let me know if this is clear. Please let me know if this is clear. This is how you should learn to read or analyze a stimulus correctly. And if this is what you can learn, you can actually 50% of your problems are solved on CR, because once you understand the stimulus correctly, you can eliminate choices successfully. All right. So let's now move to our second most important strategy, guys. And that is the power of defining the scope. All right. But before that, let me again quickly point out to you that at GMATWhiz, we spend hours teaching you the basics. How to identify premise and conclusion, how to identify counter premise and intermediate conclusion, and so on and so forth. We spend over 3 hours teaching you just the basics so that you don't go wrong. Okay? All right. So, power of defining the scope of the argument. As stated earlier, most common mistake during the answer choice elimination that we make is we select out of scope answer choices as the correct choice. All right? And we get the question wrong. So here's a question for all of you guys. All right? In fact, this is a GMAT focus question, and let's see what you do on this question. It's an assumption question, guys. So go ahead, apply your skill of reading the stimulus correctly and see if you can get this correct. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes. Get started, guys. Again, a request, do not post your answers until I request you to do so. For those of you who've just joined, we are discussing powerful strategies to solve the GMAT Focus CR questions. And this is the second question of the evening. We have 2 more questions to go, where I'm going to discuss the third powerful strategy. So guys, those of you who finished solving this question, please start posting your answers. Remember, we are going to talk about how to define the scope so as to answer the questions correctly. Please start posting your answers if you have it ready. If you have your answer ready. All right. So I already have Rajneesh and Abu Bakar's answers. Come on, guys. A lot more of you are there. Do participate. It encourages me, when I see your responses, I get encouraged. I feel as if there are people out there listening to me and I'm not just talking to a blank wall. So Rajneesh says C, Abu Bakar says A, Pratik says C, Vince believes it's E. Come on, guys, let me have some more answers. So it seems you guys found this question difficult because there are so many diverse options here. And I'm going to show you a very, very simple technique of getting this right. Come on, guys. Post your answers. Do help me to make this webinar successful, and please hit the like button if you like what's going on, if you like what I'm teaching. Do hit the like button and post your comments. Thank you, Abu Bakr. So let's see. Yeah, Pratik, it's confusing, but I'm going to show you a technique, and I'm going to let you guys post the, re-attempt this question after I show you the technique. After I show you how to define the scope, I'm going to ask you guys to re-attempt this question. All right. So let's see what are your options now. All of you write down what you have chosen now before defining the scope. So Abhishek says it's C, Ramakrishnan says it's D, Pratik is confused between C and E, Vince is E, Pratik, Abu Bakr is A, Rajneesh is C, Chaitanya hasn't posted his answer. So come on guys, post some more answers. Okay, let me show you how to define the scope, and then I'm going to bring up this question again, and I'll allow you guys, each of you, to attempt this again. Okay. Once again, analyzing the stimulus and question stem is very, very important. And I'll do the same thing. People's supply of willpower is not infinite. What this means is people's supply of willpower is not limited. Is not infinite, means it is limited. Okay. And there's a semicolon here. Let's see what the author is saying after that. Psychologists have found that successfully accomplishing, that means completing one task requiring self-control. Self-control means willpower. Okay. So we are basically saying self-control, that is willpower. Let me write it here properly. Self-control is willpower. So if you are doing a task, successfully completing one task that requires willpower leads to less persistence on a second task, seemingly unrelated task. Okay, so what I have is the first sentence, okay, is an intermediate conclusion. I'm going to write intermediate conclusion because I haven't reached the end of the paragraph. So the first portion is a conclusion. People have limited supply of willpower. How do I know this is a conclusion? Because the very next sentence is supporting evidence. If one successfully completes a task that requires willpower, then one cannot achieve similar success on another apparently unrelated task. So this is supporting the first statement. That is why the first statement is intermediate conclusion, and the second statement after the semicolon, it's part of the first statement only, is basically the supporting evidence for that conclusion. All right. Okay. But okay, there is a opposition coming up. That finite supply, which finite supply? Finite supply of willpower can become larger. Now, clearly, this is the author's opinion that this supply can become larger. All right. So we have a conclusion here that the finite supply of willpower can become larger. Now, I know this is the main conclusion. How? Because this is overriding the intermediate conclusion. This is overriding the main conclusion, the intermediate conclusion. And that is why this is the main conclusion, that people may have limited supply of willpower, but this limited supply can become larger. And then there is a because, which is a premise marker. So why is the author saying the finite supply can be increased? The next sentence says, willpower grows with use. Like a muscle, willpower grows with use. Okay. So supporting evidence is given to support the, supporting evidence is given for the main conclusion that, you can increase willpower because willpower grows with use. The more willpower you use, the more it will grow. That is what it means. Now, if you look, there is a colon here. So more details about how willpower grows will be given. A recent study showed that people who followed a physical exercise program for 2 months reported studying more, watching less television. So studying more means using more willpower. Watching less television means stopping yourself from watching less television, doing more housework for those 2 months. So again, we have further supporting evidence. So the last sentence is supporting the previous sentence, willpower grows with use, and willpower grows with use is supporting the main conclusion. Okay? Is this clear, guys? Is this clear, guys? Please let me know if this is clear. It's very, very important that you identify the main conclusion correctly. So if you did not identify the main conclusion, you probably could not get the answer correct. All right, wonderful. Now I'm going to show you how to fix the scope of the conclusion, okay? And using that scope, I'm going to allow you to solve this question again. So guys, pay attention. The conclusion is finite supply of willpower can become larger. It can be increased, okay? So the scope of the argument or scope of the conclusion is supply of willpower can be increased. Our argument is concerned with this part. Supply of willpower can be increased. This is the scope. So any new information, this is how we will fix the scope. How to fix scope? First, get the conclusion, and then this is how we fix scope. Any new information that shows how or why supply of willpower can be increased will fall within the scope of the argument. Any new information that is not affecting this scope is not within the scope. So this is your scope, guys. Any choice that tells you that supply of willpower can be increased will be the correct answer. It's a very simple step, but I'll show you how this will help. Is this clear, guys? Fixing the scope. Now, using this scope, you will check every option. You will understand the meaning of every sentence in the answer choice, and you will ask yourself, is this choice telling me that supply of willpower can be increased? If it is telling you, you keep that choice. If it is not telling you willpower can be increased, you rule out that choice. It's as simple as that. So that's the scope. Now you have to choose which of these options tells you this. Which option says, come on guys, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 1 more minute. All right, 1 minute to check your answer choices. Don't rush. Go slow and steady. Understand the meaning of an answer choice, and then ask yourself, is this choice telling me supply of willpower can be increased? If it is not telling you that, remove it. Go ahead. Which option is telling you supply of willpower can be increased? Which option is giving you evidence that supply of willpower increased? So Abu Bakr has changed his answer from A to D. Ramakrishnan sticks to his D. Pratik is now Pratik. So remember, Pratik, you were confused between C and E. Now you're to D. So we've got D, 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 D. Yes, thank you, Ramakrishnan. That helps me as well. I feel more confident if you guys feel more confident. Come on, some of the others as well. Whichever choice is telling you that willpower can be increased is your correct answer. We are solving a GMAT prep focus question, and this gives you a taste of what to expect on GMAT focus CR. Not much changes. The arguments are still the same. The question types are still the same. So Umang says C, not an issue. Rajneesh thinks it's still C. Anybody else? Yes, come on, guys. So many of you are watching this. It would be wonderful to have your options. Okay, never mind. Pratik, no, I really don't think it's harder. But yes, there is one thing that definitely, let me put it this way, reduces a student's options. So earlier you had sentence correction to fall back on. You know, even if your CR wasn't very strong, you could kind of fall back on CR, SC, and still able to score well because SC had a much higher weightage than CR. So SC has the highest weightage, then RC, and then CR. But now it's only between RC and CR. So yes, I would say that CR is more important. All right, the weightage has clearly increased, and I don't think it's going to be harder because the amount of time that is available to you per CR question is less, is the same as before, I would say. So Tanya believes it's D. So guys, it is D now that we can see very clearly. D says exercise program followed by people in the study required more willpower than they did whatever exercise they engaged in before the study. So before the study, okay, before the study, the willpower was lower, and after the study, they found that they were using more willpower. So D is proving that this D is falling within scope. It's telling us that willpower earlier was lower and later on it was increased. So D is the correct answer. Now let's look at the other choices. Some of you have chosen C. People's supply of willpower cannot be increased. We are looking for supply can be increased. This says cannot be increased by means other than repeatedly exercising that willpower. This is repetition, guys. This is repetition of information. It's already given that willpower grows with use. Okay, so C is repetition. We need new information, guys. Okay, so Rajneesh and Umang, I hope you know why this is wrong. It cannot be the answer because this information is already given to us that willpower grows with use. So willpower cannot be increased other than this, that does not matter. We are not talking about, that is there any other way of growing willpower. The author has told us it grows with use. And the author has given us this evidence to show it grows with use. So it doesn't matter whether they should be considered tasks unrelated to one another. This is out of scope. It doesn't tell us whether willpower can be increased. People in the study did not watch less television than the average person. Out of scope. Doesn't tell us willpower can be increased or not. Prior to the study, the people in the study had unsuccessfully attempted more self-control. So this does not tell us that willpower can be increased. So this is also out. You're left with D. So defining the scope is very, 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 very important. It makes things a lot more easier. So Ashutosh, the exercise program made them use more willpower. All right. And the more they use, the more it grew. So before the exercise program, they had less willpower. After the exercise program, they were exercising more willpower. That shows that willpower can be grown. All right. So guys, at GMATWhiz, what we do is we teach you how to define the scope for different kinds of CR questions. So you know that CR questions are there, which like CR questions like inference, flaw, boldface, paradox. They are of a certain category. We call them genus 1 CR questions. Then there is the assumption genus question or the assumption family questions, which contain assumptions, strengthen, weaken, evaluate. So scope is defined differently for different kinds of questions, and we teach you that on GMATWhiz. All right. And this is a very detailed process. I'm just going to quickly share once again the link to the free trial version of the course, guys, in case you want to take a closer look at our course. Yes, Chaitanya, let me break down D for you. So let me take you back to D. D says, exercise program followed by people in the study required more willpower. All right. Than did whatever exercise program they engaged in before the study. So let's say we have exercise before study, okay, and we have the exercise in the program, in the study. Sorry, not in the program, my bad. Let me just rewrite this. Exercise, okay, 1 second. We had an exercise in the study. They were following a certain exercise program in the study. Now, choice D is saying before the study, the exercises that they were doing required less willpower, and the exercise they were doing in the study required more willpower, right? That means we are showing that willpower can be increased if you want to, and they were able to do a lot more different things after they increased their willpower. Is this clear? Chaitanya, is this clear? Let me know if this is clear, Chaitanya. The third most powerful strategy is what I'm going to discuss now with you guys. Framework. Okay. Frameworks are very, 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 very effective when it comes to pre-thinking. All right. So there is the link to set up a free call if you want to with our strategy experts. I hope, guys, those of you who are watching this session are enjoying it, are learning things from it. So Tanya, during your learning phase, you learn to do small things one at a time. For example, if you want to swim, do you jump directly into 10 feet deep water? No. You first try out a 4 feet deep water space, then 5 feet, then 6, then 7, and then maybe 8 or 10. You don't jump directly. When you're just starting to learn how to swim, do you think, oh, how am I going to swim in 10 feet deep water? So take things slowly but steadily, one step at a time. So step 1, learn how to analyze the stimulus correctly. Step 2, learn how to define the scope. Step 3, learn how to pre-think. So don't worry about it. Okay. Things look difficult before we begin doing them. Once we start doing them, they don't look as difficult. Now, what happened was, during my interaction with a lot of students, I realized that a student often struggles to pre-think. Okay. I mean, the problem that a student faces is once you finish reading the stimulus, you don't know what you should pre-think, So some questions pre-thinking is easy. For some questions, you just don't know which direction you should think in. And what happens is then you start thinking in the wrong direction, which basically means you come up with wrong assumptions or half-baked assumptions or incorrect strengtheners or incorrect weakness if you're thinking in the wrong direction. Okay. This takes up a lot of your time. Of course, it also eats up your confidence if you're choosing the incorrect choice, or even if you're marking a choice half-heartedly, it kind of affects the performance over other questions. So we came up with this solution that what if we were able to provide a sort of guide to the student, a kind of guideline, a kind of framework which the student can use to pre-think, more efficiently. If it's almost like a formula that you have, use this formula to pre-think, something like that. So we identified 4 most common construction types of, these are not the only types of questions, but 4 most common types of questions across CR. So you have typical argument constructions in these assumptions, strengthen, weaken, and evaluate questions. One of the constructions is plan goal questions. Plan goal question is a typical common construction. It's not the only construction, but it is a very common construction. And this kind of question, stimulus contains a plan with a goal, and some details about the plan and the goal may be given. All right. And the conclusion is usually about either the success or the failure of the plan. So the conclusion will ask you, okay, strengthen the plan will succeed, strengthen this, or the plan will not succeed, things like that. All right. How many of y'all have come across this plan goal questions, guys? So Pratik, GMATWhiz Focus is not available. All right. Sorry, GMATWhiz Focus Edition is available, yes. If you take up the GMATWhiz course now, the Focus Edition is available. It's part of it. Pratik, if you take up the tutoring, I think we haven't made it available to all students because people haven't really started focusing on this edition. But yes, we are also going to include IR very, very soon. All right. So Tanya, I hope this will help you. How many of you all have seen this plan goal questions, guys? Just tell me a yes. The trial version does not contain the focus questions or anything about the focus, Pratik. So guys, how many of you all have come across these plan goal questions? So Pratik, it is still there for those of you who want to still opt for the current version. There are a lot of students who still want to keep giving the current version until the current version becomes obsolete, which is sometime early next year. So it's still a part of that. If you opt for the focus edition, you can mute the sentence correction part and only utilize the quant, the verbal, and the IR. Okay. So some of you have seen these plan goal questions. I'm going to show you one very shortly. And then you have these questions on causality. Causality constructions have a cause-effect relationship given in the conclusion. You have to identify, you have to strengthen the cause and effect relationship or weaken the causality or evaluate the causality and so on and so forth. All right. And then you have this third and fourth types, comparison questions. In comparison constructions, the stimulus contains typically two scenarios and a comparison is drawn between these two scenarios. And often you are asked to, often an advantage is given about one scenario and a disadvantage is given about another scenario. And the conclusion asks you to strengthen or weaken one of these scenarios, So comparison questions are there. And then you have these small quant-based questions which talk about percentages and profits and losses and things like those. So we have identified these four common construction types. All right. They are not the only types, but they are the most common types. And we have drawn up frameworks for these. I'm going to show you two frameworks today. Framework for solving causality questions and framework for solving plan goal questions. Sometimes there may be a mix of these frameworks. For example, you can have a plan and goal question that needs you to make some small quantitative calculations. Or you can have a question that has two plans and they are being compared. So things like that. So we're going to talk about the framework that you can use for causal arguments. But first, let's understand what is causality. Okay. So in GMAT CR, often stimulus contains a cause and effect relationship, which means there is one event which causes event B, and the event that causes event B is called the cause, and event B is called the effect of that cause. I'm going to give you a simple sentence here. Just read this sentence, guys. All of you read this sentence. For those of you who are, so Chaitanya, boldface questions are also there. Pratik, you will have to use the link to talk to our strategy experts. Maybe they can help you, or you can write to support@GMATWhiz for that. Okay, now that you've read that sentence, so unusually low amount of rainfall this year caused or led to or resulted in low production of corn means event A is the unusually low amount of rainfall, and the cause is low production of corn. So this relationship is known as a cause and effect relationship. So those of you who are new to a causality based argument, this is a very good example. If you have this kind of cause and effect in the conclusion, it is called a causal argument. And questions like weaken the causality, strengthen the causality, find the assumption behind the causality, these kind of questions are often posed. Okay, so let me show you the framework for this. Now, what are the typical assumptions that can occur behind a causal argument? A causal argument contains certain assumptions, and these assumptions are same for all causal arguments. Okay, in other CR questions, the assumption changes from one scenario to another, but in a CR causal argument, the assumptions are same. I'll show you how. Please read this example, all of you. Please read this example, all of you. Okay, sorry guys. So yes, absolutely Pratik. No alternate cause is also an assumption. So the first assumption that the author makes is event A must have happened before event B. All right? Guys, can you hear me? I think there was a lapse in volume here. So I was saying that look at this argument. This says the first event happened along with the second event. But the author draws a conclusion that event A caused event B. However, which event happened first is not given, right? This is not given. So the author has clearly assumed that event A must have happened before event B. Is this clear? Is this clear, guys? Is the first assumption clear? All of you all do let me know. Okay. Second assumption is nothing other than event A caused event B. In other words, the author has assumed that there is no alternate cause. because if there is an alternate cause, then the author cannot say event A caused event B. So the second assumption is no alternate caused. And finally, the third assumption is there is no reverse causality. That means the effect is not causing the cause. All right. For example, the author is assuming that because the air pollution increased, that is why there is no increase in vehicles. Okay. The author is assuming that it is not the increase in the air pollution which has led to the increase in the number of vehicles being driven on the road. So these are the three assumptions that we are making on a causal argument. You can take a screenshot of this, guys, if you want. So I'm not sure, Ashutosh, if electric vehicles give out exhaust or not. So I think that kind of knowledge is not going to be tested by GMAT. That could be an assumption in the near future when people will become more well versed with with electric vehicles. So guys, is this clear? Take a screenshot if you want to. These are the three assumptions behind all causal arguments. Okay. So the framework for causal argument is very simple. The core assumption is there is no other cause responsible, right? So identify the causality. You can call cause X, you can call effect Y. And the three guidelines are X happened before Y. That means they did not happen at the same time. It's not a coincidence, okay? And guideline 2 is nothing else caused Y. There is no alternate cause, okay? Because if there was any cause, then the author cannot arrive at the causality. And finally, there is no reverse causality. That means Y could not have caused X. So this is the framework that we will use for causal arguments. Yes, Pratik. So the author is assuming that manufacturing itself is not releasing more pollution than the exhaust of the vehicles. Here's a question for you guys to try. I'm going to show you how to apply the causal framework here. Go ahead, guys. All right, guys, you can start. All right, I think nobody has finished yet. All right, guys, those of you who've finished solving the question and are ready with your answers, you can start posting your answers. Those of you who are still solving, go ahead. I've got one answer from Ramakrishnan, guys. Rajneesh says confused between A and D. Okay. Ramakrishnan says B. Come on, guys. The others, do help me. Your answers, as I said earlier, encourage me. And those of you watching this, do like the session if you think I'm doing something good for your CR. If you think the session is helping your CR, would love to hear your comments on that. Pratik also believes it's B. Okay. What happened to the others? Sharmishta, Umang, Tanya, Chaitanya, Ashutosh, Abu Bakr, Vince, Rajneesh, Marshall. Come on, guys. I just have 3 answers so far. Would love to see a few more answers. Okay. All right. So I guess you found this stuff. So this is a GMATWhiz question, guys. And again, I hope that you found it challenging enough. Paul believes it could be E. Tanya believes it could be E. All right. Let's get started with our. So, Tanya, did you apply? Did you apply the framework? Tanya, Ashutosh, Paul, did you guys apply the framework that we discussed? I'm going to show you how the framework should be applied. Okay. 50 years ago, crocodiles were brought to the waters of Fauna County. All right. That means crocodiles were not originally found in that place. They were brought there. They were not native. Okay. The next sentence contains a lot of information. It says excessive predation means excessive hunting by the huge crocodile population now, which means the population has grown since it was introduced, threatens the mena fish. So these crocodiles are eating these mena fish, which are also there in the waters. And mena fish is the only source of a certain element or nutrient, and it is very, very important for the fauna people. It is essential. So this premise contains a lot of details here. All we get to understand is crocodiles were introduced and now they are eating a lot of these mena fish, and that is basically posing a danger to their supply of essential fatty acid called omega-3. So the inference is local people are probably facing a shortage in their only supply of omega-3. Okay, let's continue. The county officials plan to reduce crocodile population. Okay, so they are planning to kill the crocodiles by introducing another fish, Runa fish. This Runa contains a highly poisonous chemical. It is poisonous to crocodiles, but it is not poisonous for humans. All right. So this is also clear. So they want to kill the crocodiles and bring down their population. However, contrast, there is a possibility the Runa will harm the small native lizards that live in the water. So this, however, kind of presents a contrast. The plan has a small drawback. Although the Runa will kill the crocodiles, it will also harm the native lizards. In what way it will harm, that possibility is there. We don't know how it will harm. Anyways, the author goes on to say that the officials plan therefore, so this is the conclusion, okay, may be good for county people, but will increase the threat to native aquatic life. And the native aquatic life here refers to the small lizards and any other native aquatic life that might be there. Now guys, there is a question for all of you. Okay, this sentence talks about two effects, one good and the other bad. Okay, there is a cause, plan to introduce the Runa fish. One effect is it's going to be good for county people. Okay, because obviously if the Runa kills the crocodiles, their omega-3 supply will no longer be threatened. And there is another effect, the threat to native aquatic life will increase. I want to ask you, which of these two effects is the main intention or the main conclusion of the author? Yes, effect 1 is the main conclusion or effect 2 is the main conclusion? Effect 1 or effect 2, guys? Effect 1 is the main conclusion or effect 2 is the main conclusion, guys? As I said earlier, it's very important to know what exactly you are looking at. What is the main conclusion? So, Ramakrishnan, both are not the main conclusion. The first part says the plan may be good for the county people. So, the author is not so sure. But the second one, plan will increase the danger to the native aquatic life, the author is sure about, right? So clearly effect 2 is the main conclusion. What the author wants to say is, okay, plan will increase the threat to native aquatic life. It may or may not be good for the county people, but it is definitely bad for the native aquatic life. And we are going to find the assumption behind this conclusion. So because this is a cause and effect argument, cause is the plan, the Runa fish. Effect, it will increase the threat to the native aquatic life. So our guideline 1 was X happened before Y. Since the plan has not been put into action yet, X happened before Y does not apply. Let's move to the second guideline. No alternate cause can lead to the effect. So basically we are saying nothing else at present can cause an increase in the threat to the native aquatic life. So assumption 1 is very simple. Nothing else is a bigger threat to the native aquatic life than the introduction of the Runa fish. Because if the native aquatic life is facing a bigger threat, let's say the crocodiles are eating the native lizards also, then by killing the crocodiles, the Runa can actually save the aquatic life. All right? And then the conclusion would break down. So basically, the assumption is crocodiles not a bigger threat. Okay? No alternate cause. Third assumption is no reverse causality. So here we are assuming that the small lizards are not going to cause any harm to the Runa fish. All right? Because if the small lizards harm the Runa, then also the conclusion will break down. All right? So we've got two assumptions in hand, and with that we are going to look at the answer choices. A says officials have not been able to come up with an alternative plan. It doesn't matter whether the officials have come up with an alternative plan or not, right? We are talking about this current plan, and we have to find out the assumption behind whether this current plan is going to increase the danger on the native aquatic life. So this is out of scope, right? Remember, our scope is nothing else nothing else is a bigger threat to the native aquatic life. Controlled experiments have proved the ability of Runa to bring down the crocodile population. It kind of supports the success of the plan, but it supports this part. Okay, it supports this part, but it is not necessary. We already know that Runa fish contains poisonous chemicals, so we don't need the controlled experiments to prove anything. Even without those controlled experiments, maybe the plan will be successful. So anyways, remember, this is also just a strengthener for this part, but it has no impact on this part really. Therefore, B is also out. C says, Runa fish often prey on the eggs of small lizards, thus reducing the population. This choice is telling us it is just like retelling us that it can cause harm. This is just telling us how it can cause harm. Again, this doesn't have to be true. All right, the Runa fish don't have to prey on the eggs of the small lizards. So this is also, it's a distortion or what we call half truth, some information that is already given. D says crocodiles currently do not face the threat of predation from any animals. Now, any animals could mean land animals, or these could be aquatic animals, right? We don't know which animals we're talking about. If you try the negation, so crocodiles currently face the threat of predation from some animals. Okay, if some land animals prey on crocodiles, then a reduction in the food supply of these land animals will take place. So the wildlife will suffer, but this will have no impact on our conclusion, right? If it is land animals. If the predators are aquatic animals, then by killing crocodiles, we are reducing the food of the aquatic animals, and this strengthens our conclusion. But none of this is an assumption. All right, none of this breaks my conclusion. So this is also out. E is the correct answer, guys. Excessive predation by crocodiles is not the bigger threat. It is in line with our first assumption, and it is correct. Because if crocodiles are the bigger threat, then by killing crocodiles, Runa will not be increasing the threat. Okay? Alright guys, are you ready for the second framework? This was the framework on causal arguments, and you can use this framework for any causal assumption question. Let me know if you want me to move to the next framework, guys. And that framework is also very, very important because plan goal questions are very common. I'm going to bring up an official question for you guys. But before that, let me quickly talk about the plan goal framework. Okay. So the framework is you must identify the exact plan. You should be very clear. Sometimes the plan is given in a very convoluted statement. So you should be able to precisely understand what the plan is. You can even note it down if you want. So identify the exact plan. Identify the exact goal of the plan. Again, if you don't identify the goal, the same way you did not identify the conclusion in the first question today, you might go wrong. So identification of the precise plan, the precise goal is very important. That's the first two steps. Then the guidelines that you can use is these three. What happened during the planning stage? You can put yourself in the shoes of the planner and think what the planner was thinking when he or she was making the plan. You can also think about any outcome of the plan. What happened during the execution stage? Was there any side effect of the plan which can make the plan go wrong? Or you can think about anything that connects the plan and goal. Say, for example, if the plan is to increase the production of, let's say, a certain crop, then what links the plan to the goal? Whether we need to know whether the plan will really help in increasing the yield of the crop. So whether anything else will happen by carrying out the plan to reduce the yield or not, all those things will be the constraints will be considered. So this is the framework. And this is the framework that we are going to apply in the next question. You can take a screenshot of this, guys. Okay, so this is the framework that we are going to use to pre-think for a plan goal question. Here's a question for all of you. Go ahead, give it a shot. In the meantime, I'm just going to quickly share the link to set up a free call with our experts in case you have any further queries regarding the course or anything else, any problems that you're facing with your preparation, anything that you want to talk about. There's the link on the screen to set up a free call with our experts. Okay, so go ahead, guys, answer this question. And then I'm going to show you how the plan goal framework can be used here. In the meantime, those of you who are watching this from wherever you're watching this, do hit the like button and do post your comments. It encourages us to do better, to help you better. For those of you who just joined, in case you've just joined, guys, we discussed 3 very important strategies to solve the GMAT CR on the Focus Edition. First strategy was how to analyze the stimulus correctly. Second strategy was defining the scope of the argument. And now we are looking at frameworks to pre-think for plan goal questions. All right, guys, so let's have your answers. I can already see Tanya, Rajneesh, and Ramakrishnan's answers. So B, E seem to be 2 favorites. In fact, this question contains a classical, a classic plan goal question trap answer choice. And I'm going to point that out. Pratik says E but confused with B. Sharmishta says E. It seems E is the favorite of the evening, with a few of you thinking that it could be B. All right, great, guys. So I'm going to show you how the plan goal framework can be put to use. Again, remember, guys, in the exam, you don't have to use all the 3 guidelines. You can use just one guideline and come up with just one assumption, and that's it. Okay? or you can just in the previous causality question also, you can just think about no alternate cause and that's it. But you have specific frameworks for strengthen questions, weaken questions, and so on and so forth. Let me get started with my analysis. So here it goes. 12 years ago and again 5 years ago. So twice in the past. Okay, we are talking about twice in the past. There were extended periods, means long periods, when Darfur Republic's currency, the Pundra, let's call it P, was weak. So in short, we are saying twice P was weak, and they are giving us the definition of weak. Its value was unusually low relative to the world's most stable currencies. That means Pundra's value was very low when it was compared to the most stable currencies of the world. All right. Both times, that means 12 years ago and 5 years ago, a weak Pundra made Darfur's manufactured products a bargain. Bargain means cheaper on world markets. Okay, so because P's value was much lower than the other stable currencies' values, that is why P caused something. What did P cause? P made Darfur's exports go up substantially. So P caused substantial increase in exports of manufactured goods. Why? Because P was weak. So weak P caused substantial increase in Darfur's exports in the past, and this happened twice whenever P was weak. Now some politicians, so all these are premise. All these are premises, right? They're all facts. Now some politicians are saying that in order to, now whenever you read this in order to, remember it is indicating a goal. This is an indicator of a goal. In order to. So what is the goal? Cause another similarly sized increase. Not just increase, but similarly sized increase in exports. The government should allow, so this is the plan. This part is the plan. Should allow the Pundra to become weak again. So this is the plan. Okay. So we've got a plan. Okay. Make P weak again. And this is expected to cause a same type of increase in exports, right? So this is the scenario. Let's also analyze the question stem. Which of the following, if true? So right now we don't have any conclusion. No conclusion is there. These are all premise, just plan and goal, but there is no conclusion that the author is making. So oftentimes the conclusion could be hidden in the question stem. Which of the following, if true, provides the government with the strongest grounds to doubt? Doubt means weaken. Doubt that the politician's recommendation, if followed, will achieve its aim. So basically, we have to weaken the recommendation. Okay. So let us now set out our understanding here. Basically, the conclusion is, in order to cause another similarly sized increase in exports, the government should allow the Pundra to become weak again. We have to weaken this. So our scope of the argument is any new piece of information that shows weakening the Pundra will not cause another similarly sized increase. Okay, this is important. Will not cause another similarly sized increase in exports. That's our scope. So whichever choice falls within this scope will be the correct answer, and which doesn't will be out. Okay. Basically, we are saying the conclusion as per this is, this plan will not work. This is what we have to prove. All right. So let's go ahead. What is the exact plan and goal? Exact plan is weaken the Pundra. Goal, cause another similar increase in exports. What was our first guideline? What happened during the planning stage? Now, these politicians, okay, they must be thinking that whatever happened these two times, same things will happen now. History will repeat itself. Okay, they are assuming that whatever happened in the past, everything, all conditions will be the same now. So a weakener would be, if we can show things have changed, this will be a potential weakener. We could call this weakener 1. Similarly, what happened during the execution stage? Now, if you want to increase the export, you will also have to produce the goods. They are manufactured goods. We are not, manufactured goods are being, we are talking about the exports of manufactured goods. What if the manufacturing industries cannot increase their production? If that happens, then we can't have a similar increase. So this is weakener number 2. What connects the plan to the goal? There should be demand for Darfield's products, right? So a weakener would be not same demand. I'm using short sentences, guys. This could be our weakener number 3. So following the 3 guidelines, we can come up with multiple weakeners. You don't have to follow all the 3 guidelines in the exam. Just one would do. Basically, in this case, the politicians are assuming whatever happened earlier will happen. So earlier there was demand, now there will be demand. Earlier, there was no competition or less competition. Now also the scenario will be the same. Earlier, the manufacturing industries could increase or could produce enough. Now also they will be able to produce enough. All these things have been assumed. All right. Okay. So using these, we can now look at the answer choices. Nobody marked A, but I'm just going to discuss A. See, if several politicians now recommending that Pundra be allowed to become weak made that same recommendation before, okay? So earlier, Darfur's exports increased, okay? If they are the same people, then this is not irrelevant. This is like a strengthener, okay? And we are not looking at a strengthener. Okay, if the same people are making the recommendation, it is more likely that the recommendation will work rather than fail. So A is out. B is the correct answer. B says, after several decades of operating well below peak capacity. So several decades means 20 plus years. So after 20 plus years of low production, that means earlier the production was low. That means during this time, the MI were producing below their maximum capacity, which means they had the scope to increase their capacity. But Darfur's manufacturing sector now is operating at near peak levels. Near peak levels means cannot increase production. They're already producing as much as they could produce. So even if Pundra is made weak, if they cannot increase their production as much as they did previously, exports may not see a similarly sized increase. Maybe there will be some increase, but not similarly sized increase, because Darfur may not be able to produce enough to export, and therefore B is the correct answer. So those of you who were confused over B, I hope it is clear. E is not the answer. I will tell you why E is not the answer, don't worry. But is it clear why B is the answer, guys? Do let me know if it is clear why B is the answer. And I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Yes, do let me know, guys, if you're enjoying yourselves, if this was helpful. Great. Thank you, guys. All right. So let's see why the other choice. E is a classic trap. I'll tell you how. C says economy of a country experiencing a rise. So this choice is talking about a country that is already experiencing a rise. And they are saying it will become healthier only if the currency is strong. So this is not even talking about weakening the currency. Therefore, this is out of scope totally. Okay. We are not concerned about what will make the economy stronger or what is the what kind of currency we need for the health of the economy. That's not the concern of the argument. Those countries whose manufactured products compete with Darfur. So we are talking about the rivals, the competitors. All have stable currencies. If all have stable currencies, then their products are more expensive, right? If their products are more expensive, then this actually is a strengthener because Darfur's currency will be weaker and therefore Darfur's products will become bargain on the world market. So this is more like a strengthener than a weakener. E is talking about alternative plan. It's saying, what is the alternate plan? Sharp improvement in the efficiency of Darfur's manufacturing plants would make Darfur's product a bargain on the world market. Even without, so basically we are saying this is the alternate plan. We don't need current plan. All right. Alternate plan cannot weaken the current plan. Please remember this. We have to show that even if we weaken the Pundra, exports will not increase in the same quantity. Here you are offering an alternate plan, but are you weakening the current plan automatically? No. Is this clear, guys? This is a classic trap, okay? On a plan goal question, often they will use an alternate plan to weaken the given plan. That will never be the answer. So Sharmishta, the bargain situation in the past, the manufacturing industries were not producing near capacity levels, near peak levels. So they had the ability to increase their capacity if the occasion arose. But now they don't have that ability. Guys, let me know if this is clear. Alternate plan cannot weaken the current plan. And that is a trap on plan goal questions. You cannot weaken it. Automatically, just because I have plan B, plan C, plan D doesn't mean that I'm showing that plan A won't work. I have to show that if I execute plan A, it won't work. Okay. So, as I said, so basically this choice is saying there's an alternate way to increase exports, but it does not really tell us whether the current plan will work or not. So this choice does not help decide whether weakening Pundra will or will not work, and therefore this is also out of scope. Our scope is the current plan, not this plan. That brings us to the end of this session, guys. So if you have any other questions, you can ask me now. That's our founder, Piyush, whose number is there. You can reach out to him. You can connect with him over that WhatsApp. And yeah. So guys, do let me know how you found this session. Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun solving the questions? So Tanya, I think you'll have to train your brain to simplify the information, You've seen how I write down some stuff, just some symbols and some arrows, just to clear your brain, just to get it clear. I'm not the quant expert, so really I cannot answer that question. Why focus quant is too hard? You'll have to address that question to the quant expert. Yes, Tanya. That is why I said that you have to be very precise with the, the plan and the goal. Any one word missed. If you were just talking about increase in exports, then maybe you don't need the peak capacity thing. So guys, if you have any queries, thank you so much, Dark Tuber. Thank you so much. In fact, when I hear your comments, guys, it encourages me to bring up more such sessions for you, more such informative sessions for you. I'm glad, Rama, that you'll enjoy your preparation. Once you've been through the journey of solving critical reasoning, you can never be the same. It's amazing what critical reasoning does to your general way of thinking. In fact, if you want to improve your critical reasoning, read Sherlock Holmes. It's an amazing book on, I don't know, to me, it's like the Bible of critical reasoning. So, Pratik, I would say focus on information, read clearly, just that, read clearly. If, whether it's the sentence correction, sentence that you're reading, read clearly. If it's the question stem you're reading, read clearly. If it's the stimulus you're reading, read clearly. Read clearly is what I'm going to advise. Yeah, I will definitely bring more such sessions, guys. So once again, I just want to share, in case you guys are interested, the link to set up a call with our strategy experts. If you have any other queries or if you face any problems, you can talk to them. You can book this call. I'll also, and you can of course go to the GMATWhiz site and check out the free trial version there. Oh yes, CR has changed the way I think also. I wish we had more time and I could bring up more problems for you. So Rajneesh, apart from GMAT Club YouTube sessions, I also take sessions for the GMATWhiz, GMATWhiz webinars. We do it through webinar jams on YouTube as well. So you can just kind of subscribe to GMATWhiz and you'll be sent the links. Or you can write to support @gmatwiz.com and they'll keep informing you about, they'll keep sending you the links to my webinars. Pratik, I think, so it's like this. See, when you learn a formula on quant, right? Do you expect the formula to be laid out simply in front of you in a quant question on the GMAT? No, right? Same thing. You're learning a concept on, through your practice exams, through your OGs. You're learning a certain concept. In the exam, that same concept might be presented to you in a different package. That doesn't change the logic. You have to be sharp enough to notice that. So I won't say they're more difficult, but yes, you can expect the presentation to become more, let's say, complex. But if you're reading things well, and I'm telling you this from my experience, I do a lot of private tutoring with my students. And if you're reading, if you're breaking down information well, you will find no trouble, whether it is OGs or actual GMAT or practice exams and anything. So I would say the quant part, I think the mock questions are slightly easier maybe, but otherwise not. I think the difficulty level is pretty representative. So guys, I'm glad you liked the session. I enjoyed myself as well. I kind of lost track of time. It was supposed to be a 1.5 hour session. This is almost 2 hours. So guys, all the best. Dark Tuber, I would say look at the meaning. Break your sentence into 3 or 4 parts. Focus on one small part. Look at the meaning of that part, then go to the next part and connect the two. You will take slightly more time on the original sentence, but your time on the answer choices will get reduced and you will be able to mark the correct choice with more confidence. So that's my tip for SC. So guys, see you guys again. All the very best for your preparation and thank you so much for taking out the time to watch this. So thank you guys for your comments and your likes. Bye-bye. See you guys again.